Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our latest Q&A session with BundleLondon. So we're just waiting for them to pop on and join us, but I can see we've got a few people already watching, so that's great. Lovely to see you all. Hope that the weather isn't too chilly outside today. I know outside we've had a few hailstorms and things this afternoon, so hope that you're managing to get out in the fresh air and that you're all staying safe at the moment. So we're just waiting for Bundle Baby to join. Give them a moment. Hi, everybody. Oh, let's have another go a second. Bundle Baby London calling. Hi, Daydreaming Bex. Nice for you to be here. We've got a few questions already. Do pop your questions in the chat if you have anything. Hi.
Hi, I'm here. I made it on. I was a bit worried.
Ah, that's all right. So
Hello.
we were just saying to everybody that you guys were joining us today. So I'll just do a little bit of an intro and then we can get started with the questions. Is that all right?
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you.
Perfect. So good afternoon, everybody. I'm Meg. I work for Pure Flow, and we're joined by the lovely Amanda from Bundle Baby London this afternoon for our second expert Q&A session. So Amanda is the co-founder of BundleLondon, which is a fantastic company and team which offers a range of services including antenatal, first aid and also postnatal classes. So Amanda, do you want to just tell us a little bit more about you and what you do at BundleLondon?
Yes, absolutely. So BundleLondon was founded, as you mentioned, with me and my partner Deborah, and our vision was to run antenatal classes, but wanted to take it beyond that to support parents in the early days of having a new baby. So we offer, as you mentioned, sort of baby massage, baby yoga. We've got great contacts for weaning and for whatever their requirements are really, and a great network of practitioners that they can call on. So we really wanted to be able to one-stop shop. Yeah, and I'm one of the antenatal teachers, or the lead antenatal teacher really. So I run 2 of the sessions on a 5-session course.
Perfect. And your experience, you've been in sort of helping parents for over 12 years now. So do you want to tell us a little bit more about your background, and you're a mum as well,
yes,
aren't you?
Course.
So
yeah. So I'm a mum of 5. I've got 2 sets of twins and one in the middle for my sins. 4 boys and a girl. And after my second pregnancy, I really felt that there was a place for me to support other parents going through this particular transition. Mine had been quite mixed, and I wanted to be able to empower them to make great decisions, hopefully. So I trained to become an antenatal teacher, which took about 3 years, and I've been doing it ever since. And it fits around my family's needs, so it's been great.
I've got a few comments here saying, wow, 2 sets of twins, and that's amazing. I bet you definitely had your hands full with all of those.
Oh my goodness, it really, it was quite challenging times. They're all a bit older now, but still the challenges go on because everything's a phase. So and I've got one in the middle, a little singleton in the middle.
Oh, no, that's lovely. Well, we've got a few questions here all ready to go. And I had a couple of questions submitted this morning. But if you're watching and you do have a question for Amanda on antenatal and, the signs of when you should be going to hospital and things, please do pop it in the comments and I'll make a note of it and to ask Amanda in a moment. So I guess, but let's start with, what are the main signs that I could be going into labour if I was pregnant?
Well, it's one of those really hard questions because there are a few, but sometimes they could mean something and sometimes they don't mean anything specifically. But the real main signs are obviously waters breaking or leaking or gushing. So they can break a bit like the Niagara Falls and create quite a mess, or they can just slowly leak out.
Oh. I think we've frozen for a minute. Hopefully she'll be back with us in a moment. see. Oh, let's try and add her back in again. It looks like she just popped off. It's obviously the weather is not wanting to be our friend today. So just let's pop her back in. There we go. Sorry,
I'm not sure if it was. I'm sure if it wasn't sure if it was me or you. I'm sorry I was here. I don't know what you heard and didn't hear.
Yeah, so I heard you saying about waters and that they can gush like Niagara Falls, and then we lost you. So
yes, so they can gush like Niagara Falls, or they can leak out gradually over a period of time. So it's quite good practice from late pregnancy to start wearing a pad, because if your waters do just leak or seep out, if the pad is saturated by the end of the day, that's quite a good indicator that perhaps your waters have broken. There's not an immediate panic.
Yeah. Sorry. And is it true that your waters have a bit of a smell, a slightly different smell to them, don't they, as well?
They do, and some people like them to straw-like sort of smell, straw-like colour. They should be clear. We're not looking for baby's first poo, which could be a sign that your baby's in distress. So if your waters are murky, then I would definitely call up the hospital. But what I would say anyway, once your waters are broken, always call up the hospital. They'll probably invite you in, they'll check you over, listen to your baby, and provided it's all well, they'll send you home, and then you hope at that point that your labour will start. The guidelines have changed, but at the moment, according to NICE guidelines, from waters breaking to labour starting, really they want that to happen within about 24 hours. And if that doesn't happen, then it may be that your hospital will talk about augmenting, speeding up your labour. That's as a general rule of thumb.
Yeah.
So that's one of the signs. The mucus plug, or the show, it's showtime, is another sign. That again can mean something or nothing. That can sometimes go 2 or 3 weeks before your due date even. Again, it could be quite sort of gelatinous and come out in a lump, or it can be quite sort of more mucousy and you might not be so aware of it. Again, nothing to be alarmed about. You don't even really need to mention it. But if you feel like it, of course, you can mention it to your midwife when you next see her or speak to her.
Yeah.
Vomiting or diarrhea it can trigger labour often. People say nesting is one. If you're suddenly going to start cleaning the skirting board, rewashing the baby clothes again, ironing your partner's shirts the first time or for the second time that day, that could be a sign that maybe something is imminent. Could we start sort of nest? But the real ones are waters breaking, and obviously contractions. So if you're someone who's been having Braxton Hicks, and they start, perhaps they're a bit more regular, or you're having more than normal, or indeed, of course, contractions beginning to build with a pattern. And some women do sort of labour, as I did, in their lower back. So it may be that you start getting backache and twinging feelings in your back, and you're thinking, oh, have I done something to my back? Or that could also be a sign. So there's a few there to work with.
It's interesting that you mentioned Braxton Hicks, because we have a question in from one of our followers, actually, Mamazed, and she said that she's having a lot of Braxton Hicks at the moment. She's 33 weeks pregnant. Is that normal? And she said, I'm having a lot. So is that the sort of thing that she should probably be speaking to her midwife about, or is that quite normal?
It is quite normal. Everyone's different. Some women don't feel them at all, actually, or perhaps don't know what they're supposed to be feeling. And other women have only a few, and other women have many more. It's just your body, what they call sort of preparing. I would say that if there's been a significant change in if there's been a significant change to what's normal for her, then I would definitely mention it to your midwife. So if they've increased suddenly over a short period, then I would definitely mention it. If it's her norm and it's always been that way, then I wouldn't worry unduly about it. But I would definitely mention it if you've got any concerns, but not panic.
Yeah, no harm to mention these things, is there, to your midwife? So
Absolutely.
Perfect. Okay, so I've got another question here. So is it true it's better not to lie down in labour?
Completely. Contrary to what you see perhaps on One Born Every Minute, should I perhaps not say that, or on Holby City, or any of those kind of programs, women screaming on their backs. That is such a disadvantage really to us women, because it sends the fear in us for one thing and makes us panic. But actually the best positions for labour are ones which have gravity involved, because gravity is your best friend in labour. So there's an acronym I use, UFO, upright, forward and open positions. So that could be sitting on a birth ball with your knees lower than your hips and moving. It could be hanging off your birth partner's neck and moving from side to side. It could be leaning over the birth ball and rocking backwards and forwards. Anything where you've got gravity helping you and you're adapting upright positions is far better to labour in. And also, because you're producing that lovely hormone relaxin, you're feeling that now actually, in terms of perhaps feeling a bit more sort of wobbly in your hips. But in labour, your sacrum and your coccyx can move out the way, generating, you know, a good 2 centimetres plus more room in your pelvic cavity, which quite frankly in labour is really helpful. So lying flat on your back, apart from not having gravity, the birth canal is shaped a bit like a U-bend. So actually your baby has got to sort of go against the forces of gravity and sort of come round a corner and slightly uphill. So you're not helping the process at all. So no, ideally not. And if you're very tired and wanting to rest, on your side is the best.
Okay. It kind of makes sense really, doesn't it, when you think about it? Like, why wouldn't you want to let gravity give you a hand when you're, you know, when you're in labour? Okay, perfect. So I guess it leads us on to then, when should a lady who thinks she's in labour think about going to hospital? Because, you know, we hear lots of stories about people going and getting sent home and things like that. But really, what kind of is the criteria, do you think, for heading to hospital?
Well, contrary to how you may feel instinctively, the best place for you to labour is at home. But obviously, I completely understand that the safety of the hospital sort of has a great big pull. So I completely get that. And as you say, you do not want to be ping-ponging home to and from hospital, because that does nothing for you and nothing for your morale, and actually adds to your stress levels. And we're trying to keep everything calm. So as a general rule of thumb, obviously always call them at any point anyway. They're always there to support you. But as a general rule of thumb, we're looking for 3 contractions in 10 minutes, lasting about a minute each for a good hour. So that is a contraction pretty much every 3 minutes as a general rule of thumb. Yeah.
Obviously it's different for every woman, and you've got to go with what you feel's right for you, haven't you, at the time as well?
Completely. And there's never any right or wrong on all of this. You really want to try and get to hospital when you're in what they call established labour, which is anything between 3 to sort of 5, 3 to 6 centimetres. That'd be a great time to get there. Anything before 2 centimetres, I'll probably send you home. And of course you don't know, because you haven't got the tape measure out. So that usually means 3 contractions in 10 minutes as a general rule of thumb.
Okay, so if we're talking about staying at home a bit longer, then what sort of things can people be doing at home to kind of get things moving along a bit? Is there anything, you know, obviously, I guess getting some sleep and rest, if you can get some, that's always a good thing to do. But what other things would you recommend?
Completely, you're so right. Rest is so important, because labour is like running a marathon. It's very physical. It takes a lot out of us. So when you can rest, if you are beginning to have mild contractions and you're coping with those, and actually resting in between is a really good thing. I think mums really surprise themselves. They've got a huge amount of inner reserve to call upon. And for being at home for as long as possible, you've got to call on all your own sort of coping strategies, of which you have many. So it can be as anything from watching Netflix, going for a gentle walk, baking a cake, putting your TENS machine on if you're going to use a TENS machine, perhaps having some gentle aromatherapy or acupuncture or reflexology, having some massage from your partner, doing your breathing techniques, particularly if you're doing hypnobirthing or something like that, having a lovely bath or shower. Water can be hugely soothing in early labour. It's a great form of pain relief. So again, if you've got a shower, you can go in and even take a stool in and sit down, have the water pummeling on your back. Resting, eating small and often, and obviously keeping very hydrated is really important too. Just really mixing all those things up, and you'll find that time will go. And then once you're ready to go to hospital, be it, you know, you're not coping so much anymore, or you are having indeed 3 contractions in an hour, then that's the time. Always call up. I always say, do call up your caregivers to know, so they know that they're expecting you. So, and then make your way there. Yeah. So they know that you're coming in. Absolutely.
Perfect. Okay. And what sort of, is there any pain relief that ladies can take at home, sort of when they're labouring? Can they take paracetamol and things, or? Yes,
paracetamol for sure. I mean, my midwife even said, you know, and if you want that, like now is the time you can have that sneaky glass of wine if you'd like it. I'm not advocating drinking, by the way, but I'm just saying, because if it relaxes you and you've got a long ways to go, she said, if that's something that relaxes you, have it. But paracetamol, absolutely. And you can use, heat is really good, as I mentioned, the water, or if you've got lower backache, you can use some sort of, heat compressors, or a hot water bottle can be quite helpful as well.
Perfect. Okay, so in terms then of kind of like relaxation techniques, if you're staying at home, what sort of things would you recommend?
I always try to encourage our mums and parents to think about what can they do to create that nest, really, sort of hunker down, and what can they do. So at home, of course, you can light candles, you can play music. Music can be really emotive, one way or another. So if you're into music, get your playlist ready, duvets, get your partner looking after you, because you really want your oxytocin levels to flow. Yeah. Oxytocin is it's a hormone of love, and it's responsible for the shape, frequency of our contractions, but it's a very sensitive hormone. So if you can create a really soothing, sort of nesty place, and then practice your breathing, if you've been doing any, practice massage with your partner. Now's the time to put on your hypnobirthing CDs, or listen to your visualizations, or read your scripts through, and just really rest and just create this little sanctity. And then that's your sort of safe place.
Yeah, exactly. No, that sounds good. Okay. So I've got a question here. What should I take with me to feel more comfortable in hospital?
I would say anything that works for you. So don't be embarrassed about turning up with 1, 2, 3, 4 bags. They can always go home at a later date. So you want to try and create the home from home feeling, because of course, if you're giving birth in a room in hospital, they are pretty medicalized looking. So I would definitely take some extra pillows, maybe definitely take your slippers, dressing gown, maybe a few extra towels, even take your duvet if that's something that makes you feel comfortable. You can't take obviously naked flame, but you could take those like spa light fake candles. Take your music, and obviously when you get into your room, there'll be a big strobe light of lighting. Switch the lights off, maybe put a little lamp on, and just try and create that home from home environment. And anything, your smells, a bit of lavender on a cushion, anything that makes you feel relaxed and good, take it with you, because you're trying to recreate that home from home feeling. And just try and make that room work for you. And the one thing I'd like to say is, please, unless you're tired and you're resting, please don't get into the bed and lie down flat on your back. It's very tempting to do that when you get into hospital, because we have this sort of white coat syndrome. We think we're sort of suddenly a patient. You're not, you're a labouring couple. So use the room, use the bed head, and use the bed as a prop, but please just don't go in it and behave like a sick patient, because you're not.
No, do lots of walking and things like that as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. So what you sort of mentioned birthing partners a few times now throughout our conversation at different points, but is there anything, if we've got any birthing partners listening today, what sort of things should they be doing, or have you got some words of advice of things to kind of get prepared, I guess, to be the best birthing partner that you can be?
Yeah, it's a good question. Well, obviously we're in different times now because of obviously COVID, and I really hope that this passes. Obviously, birthing partners at most hospital trusts can go in when their partner's in active labour, and there's a certain amount they may have to wear a mask, so it's a bit different. It's a bit of a different experience, but still, the fact that they're there and supporting you is fantastic. And I always say to the birth partner, their main role is to be the guardian of oxytocin. So if you think your partner's got lots of oxytocin flowing through her, you may have had a bit of a stressful drive, or even if it wasn't stressful, ride to get to hospital. You may find that her labour slows down, or indeed stops as she gets into hospital, because her adrenaline levels have increased a little bit, which is completely normal. So your birth partner wants to think about everything he can do or she can do to protect you and get you labouring normally again. So he or she can be the spokesperson, keep you protected, organise a room for you, make sure that he encourages you or she encourages you to go to the loo every so often, gives you massage if you so wish, offers you sips of water. But of course, sometimes you're simply there and you're not required to do anything particularly, and being there is enough. So also have a bit of a thick skin, because it may be that massage technique that you were doing a few hours before worked quite well and suddenly it doesn't and you get snapped at. So you've got to be quite thick-skinned. And also, I would say there's a whole sort of issue over what do I take to hospital? What should I put in my bag? I'd always ask birth partners to pack their own bags and to look after themselves. So perhaps they've got to change a t-shirt, something to eat, and some basics for themselves, because they could be into the long haul themselves. So
I was going to say, you never know how long you're going to be.
Absolutely.
No, okay. And what about if ladies are having cesareans, for example? Is the role of the birthing partner any different if you're having a C-section?
The support in trying to keep your partner calm, I think, is still as vitally important. Yes, a C-section is, particularly if it's an elective one, is more sort of organised, but that aside, it can be quite overwhelming going into theatre. So to have your birth partner generally sits at your head at your left-hand side, they're supporting you, holding your hand. If you've been doing hypnobirthing, it's still relevant, and encourage you to breathe and to be calm throughout the process, because fundamentally you're having an operation, and it can be a bit overwhelming and exciting, but yeah, the support is still as critical. Yes, definitely.
Yeah, no, I know I had a C-section with my little boy, and I definitely felt so much better knowing that my birthing partner could be there in the room with me and, sort of holding my hand, didn't necessarily need to say anything, but just knowing that their presence was there was so helpful and, made me feel much better.
Completely.
So, and how long, so if we're having how long does labour last? And, there's all these old wives' tales, isn't there, about, eating curry and pineapple and all of these sorts of things. How long should it last? Does it usually last? And, is there things that people can do speeding up? I mean, I know you've already mentioned about UFO positions and things, but is there anything else?
So if you're, I mean, the due date again is slightly can be slightly sort of not annoying for parents, but I wish that in a way it'd be far better if you said you were due around about the end of February rather than given this due date, which generally comes and goes for first-time parents. Only 5% of babies are born on their due date, and it becomes quite a fixation, and it can add stress, because family and friends are saying, well, when's your baby coming? Why is he or she not here yet? And I always say your babies will come when they're ready to. And yes, perhaps you do need a helping hand, but perhaps your due date is not the exact date they're ready to come.
Yeah.
So there are natural things you can do. Some of them, as you write, are a bit old wives' tale-y, and some of them are perhaps a bit more evidence-based. So if you are getting a bit stressed about this due date coming and going, some of the things you could try at home could involve eating a very spicy curry. Raspberry leaf tea is quite good. It acts as a uterine tonic, so you want the fresh raspberry leaf. That's quite good. You can drink that from 36 weeks, and some women actually continue to drink it through their labour. Yes, you mentioned pineapple. You've got to eat a lot of pineapple for that to really be effective, and perhaps even the core. The one thing which is tested evidence, dare I mention, is nipple stimulation. Lots of nipple stimulation. Maybe not something that you fancy at that time, it has to be said, but again, that helps release oxytocin. Some people mention having sexual intercourse with your partner, because actually the semen releases prostaglandin, which is a hormone that we release to soften the cervix. But again, you've got to be having lots of sexual intercourse, and it may be something that you don't actually fancy at that point, let's be honest. Gentle movement, going for walks. Some people say drinking lots of cold water, because that gives your tummy a bit of a shock. I mean, there's a whole host of things. I would stay clear of things like clary sage, which is a very, very potent homeopathic treatment. It's a bit like drinking castor oil. It can be quite effective, but quite quick and aggressive. But only take something like that under the jurisdiction of a homeopath. But yeah, lots of gentle walking up and down the stairs sideways. So those are sort of more natural forms of induction. Yeah. And then how long does a labour start? Well, as you probably know, labour's in 3 stages. And the first stage, and if we go through the latent stage of the first stage, so the very beginning, for some women that can be a few hours, for some women that can be a few days. And that can just be niggles, period pains, am I in labour, am I not? And you're just waiting for some pattern to emerge. Yeah. Once you get into hospital, hopefully in that active stage of labour that we mentioned, then from there, on average, and I'm only mentioning averages here, it's about an hour and a half per centimetre dilation. Okay. So, yeah, that's on average. So I don't really want to give a fixed answer to that, but that's an average.
Yeah, I think you hear of stories, don't you, either end of the spectrum. You hear of people who, you know, blink and you'll miss it type thing, or people who are there for days and days. So it really is sort of, it's down to you, isn't it? And kind of, you know, and like you say, there's no right or wrong with it either.
And it is a bit misleading, I think, because when your friends say, oh, I was in labour for 40 hours, in fact, I was talking to some clients about this yesterday, I think we straight away go into that, oh my goodness, she's got on her back, she's got her legs in stirrups, and she's been pushing and screaming like we see in the films for 40 hours. We don't mean that. What your friend is probably saying is that from that early niggle, am I not in labour? Well, you're coping very well. You can go for walks, talk to your friends, do normal everyday stuff.
Yeah.
Till the baby coming, that may have taken 40 hours, not the sort of the pushing bit that everyone visualises, I think, and gets very scared about. Because I hear that time and time again in our classes. My friend said she was in labour for 40 hours and she was, you know, screaming and pushing. I think, no, it doesn't mean that.
Yeah, that would be terrifying if that was the case.
Yeah, that would be terrifying. That's why there's a lot of scared mums to be out there.
Yeah. Oh, well, you've given us so much information this afternoon, Amanda. It's been really insightful, and even I've learned a few things as well, so it was great. Thank you so much. So could you just tell us a little bit more about, could you tell me where people can find out a bit more about you and a bit more about BundleLondon?
Yes, so they can either follow us on Instagram, which is at BundleLondon, BundleBabyLondon actually. Our website, we're on our website, www.BundleLondon.com. They would speak to Deborah, my partner. We sort of really give a very private service. Personal, that's the word, not private. Personal service. So you'll always speak to us, and we're here to answer any question that you'd like about anything, to be honest with you. So our classes run across 5 sessions. And we cover every eventuality of labour, but a lot of our focus is on postnatal and having your baby, which is where we really think that new parents to be need the support, because however your birth happens, you're going to have this little bundle, and we want to support you in those early days and months. So that's where we really put a lot of emphasis on our course. So yes, so please come and just call us and chat to us. We do online courses and face-to-face when we can.
Yeah, no, that sounds brilliant. What I'll do is when I will add the links and things in so that people can find you directly when we pop this live on IGTV. But thank you so much. I'm sure I speak on behalf of everybody who's listened this afternoon. It was really informative. So thanks very much.
It's been a pleasure. Thanks for having me. It's lovely. Thank you so much.
You're so welcome.
Thank you.
No worries. All right. See you soon.
Bye. 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 Bye.